Hi, everybody. Welcome to Celestial You. And
Hello.
today I have a special episode with Laura Barat. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, we are so excited today because I feel like if you're a woman or if you're anyone who's following the emerging protests that are coming out of Iran, you are concerned about what's happening with women in the world. And in particular, today we wanted to cover the protests and the emerging revolution in Iran surrounding women's rights, and particularly the right of self-expression and to choose whether to wear hijab or not to wear it. So as a Persian woman myself, this is dear to my heart. I went and visited Iran when I was 11. And for me, I know a little bit about the morality police that we've heard a lot about in the news, because when I was there, I was actually stopped by the morality police. My family
Oh
was.
no, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it was
Why?
crazy. So I was 11, my sister was 12. My two guy cousins were walking up front, and we were walking kind of behind them. And then my aunt was there, as a chaperone or whatever. And we got stopped by the morality police, and they were basically like, "Why are you walking with these guys?" And yeah. And one of my cousins, my girl cousin, she like mouthed off at them. And I remember distinctly my aunt seeing her do that. And these morality police were like, "You can't be walking with these men." Right. But they weren't men, they were our cousins, and they were maybe
Yeah.
like a couple of years older than us. And so, they stopped them, and they stopped us and said, "Why are you walking with them?" And my cousin mouthed off at them. And then, as a display of correction, my aunt had to come up and slapped my cousin in the face and said, "No,
Oh.
like, do not do this." And she was kind of overly chastising her so that the morality police would not take things into their own hands.
Mm.
And she explained that, they had explained that these are our cousins and that they're related to us and everything. But even walking around with your cousin, male cousin, even if you're supervised by, one of your relatives, can cause questions, or it did at the time when I was 11 visiting
Wow.
Iran. And it was just so foreign to how we live here and how
Hmm.
Iran used to be when my parents grew up before the Islamic Revolution. So it's really interesting to me and of note, because when I think about Mahsa Amini and how she was taken in by the morality police, I can kind of envision how this happened. And if her hijab was not exactly right or whatever,
Mm.
they would stop her, they would detain her. I've heard many stories of people having to deal with these morality police, and they take you away. They can take you into a van, they can take you away. And that's what they did to Mahsa Amini. They took her away, they imprisoned her, they brutalized her, and she passed away like 3 days later. So she was arrested, I believe, on September 13th, and then she died several days after that. But that act
Tragedy.
of violence perpetuated a upswell of protests. Protests were already emerging, and then it created a snowball of increased protests to where we are today, where there's accounts of them having more than 1,500 people arrested, primarily students, younger
Hmm.
people, who and educated students, university students, high school students. These are not rioters um, that are uneducated. They're well spoken. They're educated women who are really just asking for equal rights and sovereign rights and the right to express themselves. So hopefully we can shed some light. We're going to go into the solar eclipse that happened October 25th in Tehran, and we're going to start with that, and that will give us a good idea of what's going to happen over the next 6 months and really like what happened. So the solar eclipse would have been in effect about a month before the eclipse and about a month after, and then also continuing through that same theme through to the next solar eclipse in 6 months.
That's right.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to start there, and I hope you guys really enjoy this episode because I'm really excited personally to get to the bottom of what's going to happen in Iran, and is fate on the side of women, emancipation, and revolution?
Yep. I think so.
Yep. Oh, okay. I'm going to actually go ahead and share just pull up the chart for folks to get a glimpse up, and then I'll take it down so that it's not too distracting for you. Okay, so we've got this solar eclipse on October 25th, and this is set for Tehran, Iran, and we're going to be talking about this. And so for those of you who are following along and want to cast the chart or pull up the chart, we just matched the moon and the sun for that eclipse that was on the 25th to the location of Tehran, Iran.
Yep. And yes, you have to do it exact and to get that exact degree. So they are exact. And so I have a lot to say about this.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull it down so that it's not too distracting. But if you guys wanted to know how to get the chart, this is how we did it, and you can follow along.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
All right. So there's a couple of ways there's many ways actually to do mundane astrology and look at the events in a country and what happens. And one of those is eclipses. Those are very prevalent. They have a lot to do with what happens on the world stage, and casting in a chart for the capital of a country will really tell you a lot. And this one I don't think there could be anything else that would show it more clearly here. So you have a solar eclipse in the 9th house in the sign of Scorpio with K2. It's an eclipse with K2. And the important things are the house cusps in this chart. And what this is showing, the 9th house very much has to do with religion. It is religion. It's the house of religion. It's the house of culture. It's the house of the direction the country is going, where the future of the country, what direction does it want to go? When there is an eclipse, especially a solar eclipse in the 9th house, it usually means it's time for a new direction. You do go into a new direction. You have Venus there also very close to this eclipse. It's within 39 minutes. Okay, it's within a degree. It's not even a degree. Venus, of course, is women. And in the 9th house, it's showing that there will be a new direction in the realm of females. Okay. And then it's with K2, and K2 is a planet of police state, of locking things down, of not allowing new ideas, new events, new situations, new directions to come in. But that only means that they will try to do that, that it will be attempted, which it is. It has been attempted to shut all of this down and, imprison people. But that won't last. I really do believe that this is a positive change going in the right direction. And and just in general, okay, so the ninth house, there is something called foundational houses. And I wrote about this in my book on astrology. And foundational houses are the first, the sixth, and the eighth house from wherever you're looking. Usually you do that from planets, but it's also set up from angular houses. So the fourth house is the people of the country, the citizens or the citizenry, and the happiness of that citizenry. And in this chart, you have Mars conjoined the fourth cusp and the fifth cusp. So we're looking at cusps here just to remind everybody. And a Mars, of course, is anger, frustration, violence. But taking that fourth house cusp, the foundational house is the fourth house itself, and that foundation is Mars. And then the sixth house from the fourth is the ninth house. And the sixth house has to do with what are the adversities, what are the problems, who are the enemies that are getting in the way of happiness, that are getting in the way of feeling good and having a strong emotional foundation. And just in general, like with a person, the ninth house is a religious upbringing, your religious background, your culture you're born into. If that is difficult, then that's going to affect your happiness. You know, if you have a bad ninth house or, you know, a challenging ninth house, then in this chart for Iran, the ninth house with the eclipse happening there means that there's a huge transformation taking place that will affect the general happiness of the citizenry. Yeah. Then you have that the fourth lord is Mercury rolling that fourth cusp, and that's in Gemini. So Mercury rules it, and Mercury is conjoined the eighth cusp of transformation. Mm-hmm. And Mercury, of course, is the communication and the I heard that they shut down some of the apps or whatever for these people to organize. Yeah. And of course, Mercury is the ability to communicate what you can say. That's also going to be highly transformed. And but
and the eighth house is
a
battle, so it's really a battle to get the voice out.
Right. Yeah. It's the house of battles. So there you go, a battle with among the citizenry, and a battle to be able to say what you want to. Mercury is the consciousness spoken. That's what Parashara says. So there's a battle to speak your mind.
Yes. And it's in Libra, so it's a battle of justice. It's a battle of equality. Mm-hmm. With regard to, my female voice is just as valuable as your male voice, or whatever you are. And I think too, the fact that it's in Libra, Mercury's in Libra in this eighth house, we're talking about eloquent, educated women. We're talking about protesters, men and women who are educated, eloquent, well-spoken, and intermittently getting shut off and getting shut out because it's the eighth house, and that's going to be more volatile with this fight.
Right, absolutely. This is just, the chart speaks for itself, in my opinion. On top of that, you have Saturn in the ascendant. So any planet in the ascendant anytime is going to be a major focus. And Saturn slow things down. Saturn is going to, cause some delays. It's going to get rid of a lot of things around the country as a whole because it's in the ascendant. And Saturn is designed to get rid of things. However, it's squared the nodes. Okay, so when you get Saturn squared the nodes, that means that your evolution, in this case, the country's evolutionary path, is at odds with what is being gotten rid of. Okay, and there's a conflict between the evolutionary path, like the psychological and emotional path of the country, and the physical path of the country. And Saturn in the ascendant clearly shows that there's a lot going to be thrown out in the country as a whole, and of course there's going to be some death.
Yeah,
because that's what Saturn rules. Then you have that fourth house, that fourth cusp going to the eighth house, which is death of some of the citizenry, and that already happened.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Iran is has had conflict ever since I can remember. I remember growing up, there was all this conflict. There was the Iranian Revolution, but Iran, the history of Iran is they had such a robust and just exciting spiritual history. They had the Magi came from the Urmian plain in Iran, and that's partly in Iran and those areas of Ossetia in Iran, and they had such a strong spiritual tradition of a lot of the mystery schools, if you will. So it was it's just, we're always, the people there is so intelligent and very in touch, and they don't want to be shut down intellectually, and spiritually. So,
and I see that too in the ascendant. So Saturn in the ascendant in Aquarius to me is like the people wanting the more Aquarian approach to society. And with that, because Uranus is on the other side of this solar eclipse with Taurus, to me it's just all about like the people wanting to have more freedom at the people level, right? Because Saturn is the common person. And if you also look at the chart, you can see that the 12th house has Pluto in it, and it's Capricorn. And so I read that as basically there's a change happening to the government. It's being spawned into a more sovereign change, because that's what Aquarius is really asking for. Saturn in Aquarius is asking for. But yeah, it's slow, it's painful, and it's going to result in some death, sadly. So
that is very true. Because of the Pluto is also in a very strong aspect within a degree and 30 minutes of Mars. And so that's really explosive. And again, it's in that eighth house position from Mars, which is a foundational house. It's the longevity of the military, the longevity of because it's Mars rules the military, police, and all of that type of thing. That means that longevity of the police, or morality police, if you will, an aspect of that is coming to an end.
Yeah,
it is. So I really do think that this will be long term. I do.
Yeah. And that's what it is it's like people have been telling me, or asking me, is it going to stick? And I think it is going to stick. And I think it's going to be long and arduous, however, because of the way that Saturn's it's not a planet where things happen quickly. It's long-term game. It's painful. It's suffering.
It's
a lot of
planet
suffering
where we don't have control.
Yeah.
We don't have control where Saturn is.
Yeah. Yeah. But the fact that Pluto's in the 12th for me, yeah, like you said, a degree from Mars, it's very indicative of a deep and transformational change that is unavoidable, really, because of the way it's positioned. I would be very surprised that this doesn't result in a complete change of government, or at least a change in their morality or their cultural, religious components of the government, because, you know, this is just very evident here. And, you know, guys, too, this is going to last. This energy is going to stick with it for the next 6 months until the next solar eclipse, or from October to the next solar eclipse. So this has legs. Okay, so
definitely. Yep.
Definitely. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to actually talk about the lunar eclipse that happened on November 8th. The solar eclipse versus the lunar eclipse.
Right. The differences. So your performing actions. So the moon being eclipsed or in a full moon is the culmination of the actions, the fulfillment you get from actions you've been taking. Okay. Or, you know, the outcome, basically. And it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to the previous solar eclipse. It's just kind of what the country's been doing as a whole. But in this case, it is linked. And so going to this, to the lunar eclipse, that moon is the fifth lord, and the fifth lord is the legacy. The fifth house is a legacy that you leave. Okay. It's children, or, you know, it's your creations, and children are essentially creations. But in the context of a country, it's within 1 degree of Uranus, which is just absolutely new things. It's the connection to our unique individual selves and becoming more of who we are. The fifth house is creative intelligence. So the creative intelligence of the country is being expressed. It's coming out more. It's changing. There's a brand new, powerful energy pouring into what this country, how it wants to be known, because the second house is also kind of your name, like the people, you know, what you're known for, what you're known by. It rules the name, you know, and for an individual, but also it's the environment. The second house is our environment. So it really does show this environment has such a powerful, changing, transformative force that is brand new, completely new, and never been done before. So Iran's not going back, or Iran, I should say, is not going back to, you know, being with a Shah, or it's not going back to the rigid authoritarian rulership. It's brand new. Okay.
Yeah.
And that this eclipse, also these actions and the fulfillment from those actions will last for about another 6 months too. Okay. But anytime you have an eclipse that is involved with an outer planet, that is a very transformative time in the consciousness of the country and the citizenry. So, and in addition to all of that, the fourth cusp is in Gemini, and that fourth cusp lord goes to the 8th house with the sun and Venus and K2. So secondarily, the 8th house becomes very important because it's where the sun is. The placement of the moon is the most important in a lunar eclipse, and the sun secondarily. And so there you have, it's in the 8th house. So that's a complete transformation. So the actions that have been happening, the events, the phenomena that's been happening in Iran leads up to this major transformation. And I absolutely believe it will be long term.
Yeah, I agree. I see it
yeah.
too, like with moon right on, Uranus right on the moon there, and that being, breakthroughs of the country's identity and emotional identity, but also their values and their structures in Taurus. So that's more so related to, their how they express, like you were saying, because it has to do with the fifth house, how they express their values. And with that, on the opposite side, with the sun being in Scorpio in the eighth house, that's basically like the welling up of these emotional needs for what I see as self-expression, and
Yes.
the welling up, the dredging up of the need to reestablish your emotions and your businesses, your friendships, your relationships on the basis of a truer expression of your values, which is honestly like what we've been talking about in our last few like in the last year. We've been talking about that happening as a whole, but for Iran and in particular, it's happening. It's coming through a very the deep sign of Scorpio, and reevaluating friendships, businesses, like how is that solar eclipse that was so much about women and the voice, and this is more about how to really fundamentally take and change those relationships to preserve the new identity of the nation. How I see it.
Yeah, you're right. Even, Venus is with the sun as in this eclipse as well. Yeah. It's not with the moon, but it's with the sun, so it's secondary. That's also, again, that's pointing to the role of the women in society,
in their relationships, in their businesses, in their friendships, all the emotional ties that people have are changing to reinforce the new identity of women and the new identity of people in Iran being able to really fully emotionally express themselves, rather than being under the thumb of such tight religious control. And it is a religious connotation because the Lagna is Pisces, so we've got
Jupiter there and
Neptune. So there may still be a lot of illusion. There might be the illusion that the government is like still in control, even. We don't know, like it's going to be, or that religion may not be leaving as quickly as we want, but it's happening. It's again, Saturn is in the 12th here. So
that Neptune right on the ascendant, that is the potential. Neptune, I was saying, I just did a video about this. Yeah. The Neptune is a planet of all of this potential. It's idealism. It's highest idealism. And if it's used correctly, if it transforms something. So being with Jupiter, it will mature it and transform it, enhance it, improve it, all of those religious values or philosophical values, even the purpose of the country.
Yeah, I think it's going to elevate the message, because Neptune does bring us closer to the high self and the universality of the message and the people here. The religion has to be a higher vibration, or the beliefs or the cultures or the philosophies, and away from really this tightly controlled governmental situation.
Yeah, I believe it will be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
do.
super transformational. I love this. And now I still see here like Pluto's still in the 11th here, so that's still like a conflict zone situation.
Yeah, yeah, the 11th house is a secondary house of, or well, it has connotations of the 6th house, which is enemies, wounds,
Yeah.
adversities, delays.
There's a
And
lot of like striving because Mars is in the with the fourth cusp and the third cusp. So this is like a huge effort to push this forward to change. But again, there still is it's a slow process, and it's still going to have conflict involved.
mhm.
But it's deep. It's really deep because when Jupiter's on the ascendant in Pisces, this is talking about big, long range philosophical changes that are
Very absolutely. Yep.
of the highest, Neptunian vision. Now, I don't think it's going to be clear right away. So that's the thing. Like a lot of my Iranian friends are like, when is this going to be over? But I don't think it's like that. It's kind of like an upswelling, a people's revolution, a ground swelling of emotion, and that needs to kind of like come to fruition and through effort and continued need for change, a continued championing of change. And I think that this is going to be slow and
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see there'll be more riots and violence for a while.
yeah.
The outcome of this, which is the lunar eclipse, has that Mars right on top of that fourth cusp, just like the solar eclipse did.
Yep.
So, yeah, right, within a degree. So I think there's going to be a lot of conflict, a
Yeah.
lot of fighting.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be all this change, all this pushing for change, all that, but also kind of like being suppressed and being like slowed down and trying to be confined basically by the government. And then I do see that, but I mean, looking at this chart, I do see like because Jupiter is there in the ascendant, that there is a huge philosophical and compassionate outcome. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I just believe in good things happening, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, that outcome will be slow, but it will be beneficial, very Aquarian, like you were saying too, because the outcome is the 12th house.
Yes.
And there's Saturn there in its own sign, or in its Mula Tricona sign, so even better.
Yeah.
And so again, yeah, the outcome will be slow, but that outcome will be long term. And
it will be for the whole of the populace. So it will not be this revolution of one, like you were saying. It can't be a monarchy. It can't be a land grab or like a power grab. No, this is a revolution for the people. So
yeah, it's definitely going in a direction that we have never seen before.
Especially
it's not going to be
Iran. Yeah. How Iran has been jerked around, like it's unbelievable. Yeah. So this gives me a lot of hope. I love this.
Good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the lunar New Year chart for 2023 for Tehran, Iran. And I'm going to pop that up. And just so you guys know, what we're talking about. Oops.
All right, so this is the Lunar New Year. And the Lunar New Year is the first, or the new moon before the sun enters tropical Pisces.
Yeah.
Okay, or the last new moon before sun enters tropical Pisces, or the Chinese New Year, if you want to look it up. That's
And
easy to do.
Typically is in Aquarius then, usually.
Yeah, usually it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're charting this chart, that's how it looks. And then I'll put this down so we can chat about it more.
Yeah. And yeah, this one happens on January 22nd. So of next year. So in a couple months. And so this chart is kind of, this isn't the best because you have 4 planets in the 4th house or conjoin that 4th cusp. And again, that harms a house when you have that many planets. Unless it's in the 1st, 9th, or 10th, then it's a yoga for great success. But if it's in any other house, it's not that great. It harms it. Then you have Mars in the 8th house. That's a difficult placement. Mars in the 8th house, they both have the same connotation. Mars breaks things. The 8th house breaks things. When you get them together, something breaks. It's a lot of breaking.
Yeah.
So, and Mars is exactly planetary aspecting that Mercury.
Yeah.
From the 8th house, and Mercury is transportation. It's in the 3rd house of transportation. So that can show violence or something around transportation that's usually around airplanes because Mercury is a bird and the sun is a bird.
Yeah.
But Venus rules vehicles, the entire realm of vehicles, but within that realm of vehicles, the sun and the Mercury rule airplanes.
Yeah. And then too, you were saying that Mercury does rule the borders, so potentially redrawing borders, or just even like fighting at the borders could be.
Fighting at the borders. Borders could break, meaning there can be break-offs of regions. Because Jupiter is in the 7th house, that's a good thing. Jupiter gets kind of weak in the 7th house because doesn't get Dikbala, but it's still help from foreign countries. Fortune, the good luck is coming from foreign countries. And it looks like the foreign countries will help the people, the common man and women.
I'm even seeing like foreign countries opening their border, like refugees can leave if there's a conflict zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that can help as well.
I think anyone who has plans to go to Iran for a visit, you should probably reconsider that all of next year.
I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that.
With 4 planets in the 4th house, the 4th house being the people, one good thing is that this is a grassroots revolution. It's not, yes, the foreign influence is not one that is engaging in subterfuge. It's one that is, foreign countries that want to see change in the area. But the whole chart, the new moon is with 4 planets, with Venus and with Saturn in Aquarius. It's a people's revolution. So that's very different than what we experienced during the Islamic Revolution, where it was a coup d'etat. And it was foreign powers really meddling. I don't see that as being the case in this chart as much.
No, I don't either. That's correct. Yep. Yeah. I agree with that. So, and I do think the foreign countries will help the people.
Yeah.
The citizenry So,
Yeah.
but it does look like there's some massive transformations for Iran for this Lunar New Year, or for 2023 Lunar New Year.
Yeah. And I think it's, I think Aquarius being the sign of the people, sovereign rights, freedom of expression in that way of being an individual. And because Venus is there, we're still seeing that from the solar eclipse, the impulse to become more individual and to, with Saturn there, release our obligations to the group way of thinking, or the group controls that were in the past there, maybe.
Yeah.
So it is that, but it also could be, full disclosure, just a lot more suffering or death in that. So,
well, I think it's going to be kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
So,
this is really like, you can't bake a cake without breaking some eggs. This is breaking the country.
Oh yeah. It's long-term transformation. Just what we saw with those eclipses, with Uranus involved with a lunar, and then Neptune on the ascendant. Anytime you get those outer planets, it's a major transformation, especially when
actually just
hitting and that eclipse of November 8th, the lunar eclipse, that Uranus being on the moon, that was indicative of the whole world. It was going to influence the whole world, but it really depends on the house clusters and the rulerships that you see, the areas of, in the country, in a specific country, what it's affecting.
I actually just added the outer planets back in because I was interested where they were. And
oh yeah, great.
Pluto's in the third. So
yeah, they're really important.
I really just feel like, I know I wanted to tell all of my Iranian friends that, hey, it's going to be a quick and easy revolution, but it will continue all of 2023. And, we'll have to see the next year, but it's this is the proving grounds, or the how the revolution takes a foothold is going to be in this year.
Yes.
Where lines are drawn, and changes are being envisioned, and Neptune's in the fifth, so it still has a beautiful vision, a beautiful kind of overall global plan, but it's a long-term plan. It's not going to be resolved in 2023. So,
right.
But who knows?
It's really coming down to the wire for a lot of different countries, maybe the whole world, to be able to have, self-expression, or have their what's the word I'm looking for? Determination, self-determination, and not under authoritarianism. So,
and you know what? We knew that Saturn in Aquarius was going to change things, and Saturn is about, is going to move out of Aquarius into Pisces. So these changes needed to happen now while Saturn was still there, because what Saturn does is when it makes changes, it makes them for the long run. So these tweaks had to get going now, but we're not saying that they're quick. That's the problem. This is a grassroots revolution. It's going to take time. There's going to be some foreign influence, but it sounds like pretty benefic foreign influence. And
it does.
For the people, recognizing the people. But this is really a chart of continued differentiation, like lines are being drawn, people are redefining, and it's still conflictual. So,
oh yeah, Saturn will gives things long term after it gets rid of a lot of different things. It has to get rid of things first, and then what's left over is that long term. That's number 7. Saturn is the 7th planet, and that's what it does. That's its job. So
yeah, it's slow moving, and
yeah.
it's long range, and this is a long range revolution. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, it's crazy, and like,
Well, it's a very interesting time to be alive.
very interesting time to be alive. And
Mhm.
I know that a lot of the people, the Iranian people who will listen to this, hopefully, I'm definitely with the people of Iran, and we've all waited for that time where we can all go and visit Iran and be free and go visit Persepolis and the ancient ruins and open it up
Yeah.
to the West, to travel, to tourism again, and have people come and see the ancient knowledge of Iran, the ancient roots of Iran. And so, like, so many of my friends are just like, oh my gosh, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to happen, you guys. It looks like it's happening, but again, it's grassroots, it's slow, it's going to still be a fight. There's going to be some continued efforts and struggle during 2023 to bring this out. But man, once you crack that egg, it's not going back in. Like, this
No,
is
it's not.
we are going in this direction.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for you today.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us, and thanks for having me, Ida.
Of course, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much to my teacher and the wisdom of Laura Barat.
Thank you.
And helping us to understand what's going to happen, and give hopefully a lot of the people of Iran and Iranians and lovers of Iranians and Persians some hope that things are changing, and they're changing deeply and drastically, and it's perhaps what we've all wanted. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.